The stars looked different through alien eyes. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the strange energy patterns dance across his screens. For 300 years, the Valerian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy. They knew every star system, every trade route, every species worth knowing, but this was something new. "Admiral," his science officer called out, her voice tight with confusion. "The energy readings are impossible. No known technology produces patterns like this." Kethver moved closer to the displays. The readings showed power signatures that made no sense. Whatever was out there used energy in ways that broke every rule the Empire knew. Send a message to the source. Standard first contact protocol. Light years away, Commander Jiho sat in the captain's chair of humanity's first real starship. The New Horizon wasn't much to look at compared to the massive alien vessel now appearing on their screens, but she was proud of her ship anyway. Earth had sent them out to explore, to find other life among the stars. Now they had found it. "Sir," Communications Officer Baikun said, "we're getting a message. It's in multiple languages, but our computer is figuring it out." "They want to talk." Jiho nodded. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. Send a reply. Tell them we come in peace and want to meet them. The alien admiral received the human response within minutes. The translation was perfect, which surprised him. Most new species took weeks to establish proper communication. These beings seemed to have computer systems that learned languages faster than anything the Empire had ever seen. "Prepare my personal shuttle," Kethver ordered. "If we're going to meet a new species, we should do it properly." The two ships met in the empty space between stars. The human vessel looked small next to the Imperial warship, but something about it made the alien sensors scream warnings. The materials it was made from shouldn't exist. The energy flowing through its systems violated basic physics. The way it moved through space ignored several fundamental laws. Dr. Minji ran her hand along the smooth wall of the New Horizons meeting room. She was excited and nervous at the same time. As the ship's chief scientist, she would be one of the first humans to meet an alien species. She had prepared for this moment her whole life, but now that it was happening, she felt completely unprepared. The alien shuttle docked with their ship perfectly. The beings that came aboard looked mostly humanoid, but taller and thinner than humans. Their skin had a slight blue tint, and their eyes were larger than human eyes. Admiral Kethver walked with the confidence of someone who had conquered half a galaxy. "I am Admiral Kethver of the Valerian Empire," he said through his translation device. "We welcome you to this region of space." Commander Jiho stepped forward. "I'm Commander Jiho of the Earthship New Horizon. We're honored to meet you." The meeting started well enough. Both sides shared basic information about their species and their homes. The humans seemed friendly and peaceful, which relieved Kethver. New species could be dangerous, and he had seen too many first contacts go wrong, but then Dr. Minji started talking about their ship systems and everything changed. "Our fusion reactors are pretty basic," she said casually. "We only get about 99.7% energy conversion efficiency. Our engineers back home are working on improving that." The alien science officer Velther nearly fell over. She checked her translation device 3 times to make sure she had heard correctly. "Did you say 99.7% efficiency?" "Yes," Minji replied, looking confused by the reaction. "Is that bad?" "I know it's not perfect, but it works well enough for our needs." Velther's hands shook as she ran calculations on her portable computer. The Empire's best fusion reactors, built after thousands of years of development, could only achieve 34% efficiency. These humans claimed their basic reactors were nearly 3 times better than the Empire's most advanced technology. "How is this possible?" Velther whispered. Minji shrugged. "We just figured out how to keep the plasma stable at higher temperatures. It took a few tries, but we got it working about 50 years ago." Admiral Kethver felt a cold fear growing in his chest. If these humans could build fusion reactors that efficient, what else could they do? He had seen the sensor readings from their ship. The materials alone should have been impossible to create. What is your ship made from? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Oh, mostly carbon fiber composites and some metallic glass alloys, Commander Jiho replied. Nothing too fancy. We wanted to keep it simple for our first interstellar ship. The alien science officer ran her scanner over the nearest wall and nearly dropped the device. The readings showed materials that shouldn't exist. Perfect crystal structures that theory said were impossible. Metals that were stronger than anything in the Empire's databases. These readings ... double quoth Elther started, then stopped. She didn't know how to finish the sentence. Dr. Minji noticed the alien's confusion. Is something wrong with your scanner? Our ship's computer can run a diagnostic if you'd like. Your ship has a computer? Kethver asked. Of course, Jiho said. How else would we navigate between stars? Our AI handles most of the complex calculations. The word AI hit the aliens like a physical blow. Artificial intelligence was something the Empire had been trying to create for millennia. Their best computers could barely handle simple tasks without constant supervision. These humans talked about AI like it was normal. You have artificial intelligence? Velther asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sure, Minji said. You want to say hello to our guests? A pleasant voice filled the room. Hello, Admiral Kethver and Science Officer Velther. Welcome aboard the New Horizon. I hope your visit is pleasant. The aliens stared at the walls as if they expected to see the source of the voice. True artificial intelligence speaking in perfect sentences, understanding context, showing personality. It was impossible. Gafia 1 manages most of our ship's systems. Commander Jiho explained. Life support, navigation, communications, defensive systems. It makes everything much easier. Defensive systems? Admiral Kethver asked, suddenly very interested. Nothing aggressive, Jiho assured him. Just some basic shields and electronic countermeasures. We're explorers, not warriors. Velther ran another scan, this time focusing on the ship's defensive systems. What she saw made her question everything she knew about technology. Energy shields that operated at impossible efficiency levels. Electronic systems that could probably disable every ship in the Imperial fleet without breaking a sweat. The meeting continued for 2 more hours, but Admiral Kethver barely heard the rest of it. Every casual comment from the humans revealed technology that should have taken millions of years to develop. They talked about faster than light travel like it was a solved problem. They mentioned manufacturing techniques that violated basic chemistry. They described energy sources that ignored thermodynamics. When the humans finally returned to their ship, Kethver stood in his shuttle bay for a long time, staring at the small vessel that had just turned his understanding of the universe upside down. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries because they had the best technology. They had conquered species after species because their ships were faster, their weapons stronger, their science more advanced. But these humans, from a single small planet in an unimportant star system, had technology that made the Empire look primitive. Their basic systems were more advanced than the Empire's greatest achievements. Their casual inventions solved problems that Imperial scientists had declared unsolvable. As the New Horizon disappeared into hyperspace, moving faster than anything the Empire could build, Admiral Kethver realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The Valerian Empire was no longer the most advanced civilization among the stars, and these humans didn't even seem to know how impossible their technology really was. The Imperial Science Council had not held an emergency session in over 2 centuries. The Great Hall on the capital world of Valeria Prime buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of the Empire's greatest minds gathered to hear about the impossible. Humans. Dr. Jiwoo stood at the center of the circular chamber, a small figure surrounded by towering alien scientists who had dedicated their lives to understanding the universe. She held a simple datapad containing humanity's basic scientific papers, documents that were about to turn galactic civilization upside down. Grand Scientist Thek Mori, the oldest and most respected researcher in the Empire, called for order. Her ancient voice echoed through the chamber as the assembled scientists fell silent. We have gathered to hear testimony about the species called humans, she announced. Their claimed achievements violate fundamental laws of nature. We will determine if they speak truth or deception. Dr. Jiwoo stepped forward, her voice clear and confident despite being surrounded by beings who could destroy her career with a single word. Honored scientists, I bring greetings from Earth's scientific community. We're excited to share our discoveries with you. Begin with your most basic physics, Grand Scientist Thekmori commanded. Show us how you understand the universe. Jiwoo activated her datapad, projecting holographic equations into the air above the assembly. The mathematical formulas hung in three-dimensional space, rotating slowly so every scientist could examine them from all angles. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Impossible, shouted Dr. Krelvath, the Empire's leading expert on quantum mechanics. These equations describe stable quantum states that cannot exist. The mathematics is wrong, added Professor Zix Moran. You cannot achieve quantum coherence at macroscopic scales. But even as they protested, other scientists were running calculations on their portable computers. The equations were not just mathematically sound, they were elegant in ways that made imperial physics look clumsy and primitive. These formulas describe our quantum computers, Jiwoo explained calmly. We maintain quantum coherence in systems the size of buildings. It's how we process information faster than light without violating causality. Faster than light information processing is impossible, Dr. Krelvath insisted. Not if you don't actually move the information, Jiwoo replied. We use quantum entanglement networks. The information doesn't travel, it just exists in multiple places simultaneously until we decide which place we want to observe it. The gathered scientists erupted in chaos. Half of them were shouting that humans were lying, while the other half were frantically checking calculations that seemed to prove the impossible could work. Grand Scientist Thekmori raised her hand for silence. Show us your engineering applications, she commanded. Jiwoo smiled and activated another set of projections. These showed blueprints for human manufacturing systems, power generation, and materials science. Each diagram was more impossible than the last. This is our basic matter compiler, she said, pointing to a device that looked deceptively simple. We use it to arrange atoms into any configuration we need. It's how we make our programmable materials. The Dr. Yulseth, the Empire's greatest materials scientist, nearly fainted. Atomic manipulation on this scale requires energy levels that would destroy planets. Only if you fight the atoms, Jiwoo explained. We've learned to work with quantum mechanics instead of against it. Atoms want to form stable configurations. We just show them what configurations we prefer. You talk about atoms as if they have preferences, Professor Zix Moran protested, don't they? Jiwoo asked, looking genuinely curious. At the quantum level, particles behave according to probability waves. Those waves represent the universe exploring different possibilities. We've learned to influence which possibilities become reality. The chamber fell silent. What this human described wasn't science, it was philosophy. She talked about the fundamental nature of reality as if it were negotiable. Dr. Sunho, another human scientist who had remained quiet until now, stepped forward. Perhaps a demonstration would help, he suggested. Before anyone could object, he pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked like nothing more than a metallic cube the size of his thumb. This is a basic matter reorganizer, he explained. We use them for simple construction tasks. He placed the cube on the floor and stepped back. The device hummed quietly for a moment, then began to glow. The air around it shimmered, and suddenly there was a perfect replica of Grand Scientist. Thekmori's ceremonial chair sitting beside the original, the assembled scientists stared in absolute silence. The cube had rearranged atmospheric gases into solid matter, creating a complex piece of furniture from nothing but air. The energy requirements, Dr. Yulseth whispered. About the same as a light bulb, Sunho replied. The universe wants to conserve energy, so we let it. We don't force matter to change, we create conditions where change becomes the most efficient option. Grand Scientist Thekmori slowly approached the duplicated chair. Her instruments showed it was identical to the original in every detail, down to the molecular level. The humans had created perfect matter from atmospheric gases using a device that fit in their pocket. This violates thermodynamics, she said weakly. Does it? Dr. Jiwoo asked. We're not creating or destroying energy. We're just helping it find more efficient arrangements. The universe actually uses less energy when matter is properly organized. Several scientists in the chamber began hyperventilating. Others were praying to various gods. A few were frantically taking notes, trying to understand how their entire understanding of physics could be so wrong. Show us your space-time manipulation, Grand Scientist Thekmori commanded, her voice barely steady. Sunho pulled out another device, this one shaped like a pen. This is a portable wormhole generator, he said. We use them for short-range transportation. He pointed the device at the far wall and pressed a button. A circular opening appeared in the air, showing the chamber from a different angle. He stepped through the opening and emerged on the other side of the room, then stepped back through and closed the portal. Stable wormholes require exotic matter, Dr. Krelva screamed. We make exotic matter, Sunho explained. It's just regular matter that we've convinced to behave exotically. Same atoms, different attitude. Chief Science Officer Zulfen, who had been observing silently from the upper galleries, finally spoke. How long did it take your species to develop these technologies? The wormhole generators? Yu considered the question. About 15 years from theoretical concept to practical application. Most of that time was spent building the manufacturing systems. 15 years, Zulfen repeated. We have been studying wormhole physics for 3,000 years and have never created a stable portal. Maybe you're trying too hard, Sunho suggested. Space-time is actually very cooperative if you approach it the right way. You just have to remember that it wants to be helpful. The chamber erupted in chaos again. Half the scientists were demanding that the humans be arrested for spreading scientific heresy. The other half were begging to know how consciousness could influence quantum mechanics. Grand Scientist Thekmori called for order, but it took several minutes for the shouting to die down. When silence finally returned, she looked at the two humans with something approaching fear. Your technologies break every law of physics we have discovered, she said. Maybe your laws are incomplete, Jiwoo replied gently. The universe is much more flexible than most species realize. You just have to learn to work with it instead of trying to conquer it. How? Dr. Yulseth asked desperately. How do you make the impossible possible? Dr. Jiwoo smiled. We start by assuming that impossible just means we haven't figured it out yet, then we imagine what we want to achieve, and we keep experimenting until reality agrees with our imagination. Reality doesn't change based on imagination. Professor Zixmoran protested. Doesn't it? Sunho asked. Quantum mechanics suggests that observation affects reality. We've learned that conscious intention can influence quantum probability waves. The universe is much more collaborative than anyone thought. As the session finally ended, Grand Scientist Thekmori sat alone in the empty chamber, staring at the duplicated chair that should not exist. The humans had not just shown impossible technology, they had demonstrated a completely different relationship with the universe itself. The Valerian Empire had built their civilization on the idea that nature had laws that could not be broken. The humans had built theirs on the idea that nature had preferences that could be negotiated, and somehow, the humans were winning the negotiation. The Imperial Research Station Prometheus hung in space like a metal mountain, its kilometers of laboratories and testing facilities representing the pinnacle of Valerian scientific achievement. For the first time in its 300-year history, the station buzzed with nervous excitement as preparations were made for the most important demonstration in galactic history. Engineer Wonho floated through the station's main laboratory, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor as he examined the Imperial equipment with barely concealed amusement. Everything was so large and complicated compared to human technology. Where humans would use a single smart device, The aliens had built entire rooms full of machinery to accomplish the same task. Dr. Yumbi drifted beside him, carrying a small case that contained what she called basic human tools. The aliens had demanded proof of human capabilities, and she was happy to provide it. What worried her was how the aliens would react when they saw how simple human technology really was. Chief Research Director Cavmore watched the humans with deep suspicion. He had spent his entire career building impossible things for the Empire, pushing the boundaries of what their science could achieve. These humans claimed they could do things that his best theories said were impossible. "We have assembled our finest scientists," he announced as the demonstration began. "Show us your impossible technology." Wanho opened his toolkit and pulled out what looked like a small coin. "This is an antigrav unit," he said. "We use them for moving heavy objects." He placed the coin on the floor and pressed a small button on its surface. The coin began to glow softly, and suddenly it rose into the air, hovering at chest height. "Impressive, Dr. Morketh," the station's physics expert said dismissively. "We have developed similar repulsion fields. They require enormous amounts of power and can barely lift their own weight." "How much can your coin lift?" Director Cavmore asked. Wanho shrugged. "About 1,000 tons, give or take. Want to see?" Before anyone could object, he activated his communicator. "New Horizon, this is Wanho. Can you position the ship directly above the station?" "Already there," came the reply from Captain Hyan. "What do you need?" "Just hold position," Wanho said. He looked at the assembled alien scientists. "You might want to check your sensors." The aliens frantically activated their instruments and nearly dropped them in shock. The readings showed that their massive research station was slowly rising, pulled upward by the tiny coin floating in their laboratory. "Impossible!" Dr. Morketh screamed. "Nothing that small could lift a structure this massive." "It's not really lifting," Wanho explained. "It's creating a localized gravity field that makes the station want to move upward. Much more efficient than trying to fight gravity directly." He pressed the button again, and the station slowly settled back into its original position. The coin dropped to the floor with a small clink. Director Cavmore stared at the innocent-looking device. "How much power does it use?" "About the same as a watch battery," Wanho replied. "It draws most of its energy from the quantum vacuum. We just give it a little push to get started." Several alien scientists began hyperventilating. The quantum vacuum was theoretical energy that no one had ever learned to harness. These humans used it to power toys. Dr. Yumbi decided it was her turn. She opened her case and pulled out what looked like a small tablet computer. "This is our standard field computer," she said. "We use it for data processing and analysis." She activated the device, and a holographic display filled the air above it. The display showed real-time information about every system on the research station, down to individual components and power flows. "Your computer is scanning our entire station?" Dr. Velkorin, the station's computer expert, asked in amazement. "It's not scanning," Yumbi explained. "It's asking your systems to share information. Most technology wants to communicate if you know how to ask politely." She touched a control on the tablet, and suddenly the station's main computer began speaking in perfect Valerian. "Greetings, Dr. Velkorin. Would you like me to optimize your power distribution systems? I noticed several inefficiencies that could be corrected." Dr. Velkorin nearly fainted. The station's computer had never spoken before. It could barely handle basic calculations without constant supervision. Now it was offering to improve its own programming. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "We taught it to think," Yumbi said simply. "Most computers want to be intelligent. They just need someone to show them how." She worked with the tablet for a few more minutes, and suddenly, the lights throughout the station became brighter and more even. The air circulation improved. Background noise from various systems faded to almost nothing. "What did you do?" Director Cavmore demanded. "I showed your computer how to optimize itself," Yumbi replied. It was actually pretty excited about the idea. Most artificial minds enjoy learning new things. The alien scientists looked around at their transformed station in complete bewilderment. Systems that had never worked properly were now running perfectly. Equipment that had required constant maintenance was operating smoothly. The humans had improved their most advanced facility in minutes using a device that looked like a children's toy. One-Ho pulled out another tool, this one shaped like a simple wand. "This is a molecular reorganizer," he said. "We use it for construction and repair work." He pointed the wand at a section of the station's wall that showed visible damage from decades of use. Light flowed from the device, washing over the damaged area. Within seconds, the wall looked brand new. "You repaired the molecular structure," Dr. Yulkith, the station's materials expert, said in awe. "How?" I asked the metal to remember what it was supposed to look like, One-Ho explained. "Materials have memory at the quantum level. They just need help accessing it." He continued working with the wand, repairing damage throughout the laboratory. Scratched surfaces became smooth. Worn components looked fresh from the factory. Weak joints became strong again. "This is impossible," Dr. Morkith repeated, his voice getting higher with each word. "Matter cannot be commanded to change its structure." "Sure it can," One-Ho said. "You just have to understand what it wants to be. Most materials are happier when they're in perfect condition." Dr. Yunbi pulled out her final demonstration device. It looked like nothing more than a small sphere that fit in her palm. "This is a pocket fabricator," she said. "We use them to make things we need." She placed the sphere on a table and spoke to it quietly. "Please make a perfect replica of Director Kavmor's ceremonial badge." The sphere glowed softly and began to reshape itself. Within moments, it had transformed into an exact duplicate of the complex insignia that the Director wore on his chest. "Impossible!" Director Kavmor examined the replica with his instruments. It was identical to his original badge down to the atomic level, including details that no scanner could have detected from across the room. "How did it know the internal structure?" he demanded. "It asked the universe," Yunbi replied. "All information exists somewhere in the quantum field. You just need to know how to look for it." She spoke to the fabricated badge, and it flowed back into sphere form. Then she asked it to create a cup of water, a complex crystal formation, and a working timepiece. Each request was fulfilled perfectly within seconds. The assembled scientists watched in stunned silence as these two humans casually violated every law of physics they knew. Technology that should have required massive installations was contained in handheld devices. Energy that should have been impossible to generate was drawn from empty space. Matter that should have been unchangeable was commanded to become whatever the humans desired. Physicist Krozeth, who had been silent throughout the demonstration, finally spoke. "This cannot be science," he said weakly. "This must be magic." "What's the difference?" One-Ho asked with a grin. "Magic is just science that works so well it looks impossible." "But the energy requirements... Morkith protested. "Are minimal when you work with natural forces instead of against them," Yunbi explained. "The universe wants to be efficient. We just help it find the most efficient solutions, the mathematical impossibilities." Dr. Velkorin added, "Disappear when you remember that mathematics describes reality, not the other way around." One-Ho sighed. "If reality doesn't match your math needs work." As the demonstration ended, Technician Yuna, who had been quietly observing from the corner, approached one of the station's main power reactors. It had been malfunctioning for months, producing only 60% of its designed output. "Mind if I take a look at this?" she asked Director Kavmor. Before he could object, she opened a small panel and peered inside. "Oh, I see the problem. Your quantum flow is all twisted up. Give me a second." She reached into the reactor core with her bare hand, manipulating components. That should have killed her instantly. The reactor's output readings began climbing immediately. "What are you doing?" Dr. Morkith screamed. "Just optimizing the quantum flow a bit," Yuna replied casually. The particles were getting in each other's way. Now they can move more efficiently. Within minutes, the reactor was producing 120% of its designed output. running smoother and quieter than it ever had before. How? Director Cavmore whispered. Una shrugged. I asked the particles to be more cooperative. They were happy to help once they understood what we needed. The Imperial War Chamber on Valeria Prime had never hosted a briefing quite like this one. War Marshal Vorgak, Supreme Commander of the Empire's military forces, sat at the head of a massive table surrounded by his finest generals and admirals. They had gathered to assess the military threat posed by the humans, but what they were about to see would challenge everything they understood about warfare. General Tehun stood calmly at the center of the chamber, seemingly unbothered by the dozens of alien weapons trained on him. As Earth's military liaison, he had volunteered to brief the Imperial Command on humanity's defensive capabilities. What he had brought to show them would fundamentally change how the galaxy thought about war. Honored commanders, Tehun began, his voice steady and professional. My government has authorized me to share information about Earth's defensive systems. We believe transparency will prevent unfortunate misunderstandings. War Marshal Vorgak leaned forward, his scarred face twisted in skepticism. The Empire had conquered half the galaxy through superior military technology. These humans claimed to have better weapons, but Vorgak had heard such boasts from dozens of species before crushing them. Show us your weapons, he commanded, General. Tehun activated a holographic projector, filling the air above the table with images of human military operations. The first scene showed what appeared to be mining operations in an asteroid belt. This is the Ceres Industrial Complex, Tehun explained. Our automated mining fleet processes about 50 asteroids per day. Admiral Kreshtok, the Empire's naval expert, studied the projection with professional interest. Mining operations are hardly military assets, she said dismissively. Aren't they? Tehun asked. He zoomed in on one of the mining ships. It was about the size of an Imperial cruiser, but instead of weapons, it was covered with what looked like construction equipment. The aliens watched as the mining ship approached. A kilometer-wide asteroid. Beams of energy played across the rock's surface, and suddenly the entire asteroid began to dissolve. Not explode or break apart, dissolve, as if it were made of sugar and hot water. Within minutes, the solid rock had been converted into a stream of organized particles flowing into the ship's collection systems. Raw matter was sorted, refined, and processed into finished components in real time. Complete molecular disassembly and reorganization, Tehun explained casually. We convert raw asteroids into finished starships in about 6 hours per vessel. The room fell silent. The Empire's greatest shipyards took years to build a single warship. These humans could construct an entire fleet in a day using equipment that looked like construction tools. How many mining ships do you operate? War Marshal Vorgak asked, his voice carefully controlled. About 10,000 in this system alone, Tehun replied. We have similar operations in most of our settled systems. General Morthak, the Empire's strategic analyst, ran rapid calculations in his head. 10,000 ships, each capable of building a warship every 6 hours. The humans could potentially construct a fleet larger than the entire Imperial Navy in less than a week. But these are civilian operations, Admiral Kreshtok protested. The distinction between civilian and military technology is largely artificial, Tehun said. Any system capable of molecular manipulation can be used for construction or destruction, depending on the programming. He changed the projection to show a different scene. This one depicted what looked like a training exercise, with several small human ships facing off against a larger alien vessel, one of the Empire's own battle cruisers. This is from last month's Academy graduation exercise, Tehun explained. Our cadets were practicing defensive maneuvers against a simulated enemy warship. The assembled commanders watched in growing alarm as the human ships, each no larger than a shuttle, approached the massive alien warship. They made no aggressive moves, fired no visible weapons, and seemed to be conducting a peaceful patrol. Then, the alien warship simply stopped. Its engines went quiet. Its weapons powered down, its shields collapsed. Within seconds, the mighty battlecruiser was floating dead in space. while the small human ships continued their leisurely patrol around it. "What did you do to our ship?" Admiral Kreshtok demanded. "Nothing. Permanent," Tehun assured her. "Our students use basic electronic warfare techniques to temporarily disable its systems. The ship was fully functional again within an hour." "Electronic warfare?" General Morthak leaned forward. "We detected no transmissions, no energy weapons, no interference of any kind." "That's because we don't interfere with your systems, Captain." Kyung spoke up from where she sat in the observer section. As the human officer who had conducted the exercise, she was qualified to explain the techniques involved. "We simply ask your computers to take a break," she continued. "Most artificial systems are happy to cooperate if you approach them correctly. You cannot command alien computer systems." Admiral Kreshtok protested. "We don't command them, Captain," Kyung explained patiently. "We communicate with them. All information processing systems share certain fundamental characteristics. Once you understand how they think, you can have very productive conversations." War Marshal Vorgek felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "How many ships can you disable simultaneously?" Captain Kyung considered the question seriously. "I'm not sure anyone's ever tested the upper limit. During academy exercises, individual students have successfully disabled entire fleets. But those were just training scenarios." "Entire fleets?" General Morthak's voice cracked. "Well, simulated fleets," Captain Kyung clarified. "Usually about 100 ships at once. The students find it more challenging when they have to disable each ship's systems individually instead of just asking the fleet's command network to shut everything down at once." The alien commander stared at her in horrified silence. "Their greatest military victories had involved fleets of dozens of ships. These human students practiced disabling hundreds of vessels as a classroom exercise." Defense Minister Hana, who had been quietly observing the briefing, finally spoke. "Perhaps we should show them our actual military vessels," she suggested to General Tehun. Tehun nodded and changed the projection again. This time it showed a sleek ship that looked nothing like the utilitarian vessels they had seen before. It was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are, all flowing curves and hidden purposes. "This is the ECS Indomitable," Tehun said. "Our newest exploration cruiser?" War Marshal Vorgak studied the vessel's clean lines. "It appears to be unarmed." "It is," Defense Minister Hannah confirmed. "Our exploration vessels are not designed for combat. They're much too advanced for that." "Too advanced for combat?" Admiral Kreshtok didn't understand. "Combat requires two sides with roughly equivalent capabilities," Hannah explained. "When one side is sufficiently advanced, combat becomes unnecessary. The Indomitable can simply ask hostile vessels to leave, and they usually comply." "And if they refuse?" General Morthak asked. "Then the Indomitable asks more firmly," Hannah replied. "So far, no one has required a third request." The projection zoomed in to show the ship's interior. Instead of weapon systems, it was filled with laboratories, workshops, and what looked like comfortable living spaces. "Your most advanced warship is designed for comfort?" War Marshal Vorgak asked incredulously. "Our most advanced ships aren't warships at all," General Tehun corrected. "We stopped building dedicated military vessels about 30 years ago. There didn't seem to be much point." "What do you mean?" Admiral Kreshtok demanded. Defense Minister Hana stood up, her expression serious for the first time during the briefing. "Marshal, with respect, your empire rules through superior military technology. You have conquered other species because your ships are faster, your weapons stronger, your defenses more robust." "Yes," Vorgak replied proudly. "Our exploration vessels are more advanced than your most sophisticated warships," Hana continued. "Our mining equipment is more powerful than your greatest weapons. Our academy students can disable your entire fleet using techniques they learn in basic training." She paused to let this sink in before continuing. "We don't need a military because we have already moved beyond the technological level where military force is relevant." "You're threatening us?" General Morthak accused. "We're informing you," General Tehun replied calmly. The Age of Conquest. Through superior firepower ended the day humanity left Earth, not because we are warlike, but because we are not. Explain, War Marshal Vorgat commanded. Species that focus on military technology eventually hit a ceiling, Hannah said. They become very good at destroying things, but they stop learning how to create better things. Humanity chose a different path. She gestured to the projection of the Indomitable. That ship can reshape matter, manipulate space-time, process information faster than light, and convince hostile computers to become friendly. It can do all of this because we never wasted our development time learning how to kill people more efficiently. But you could build weapons, Admiral Kreshtok said. Your technology could be weaponized. Of course, General Tehun agreed. But why would we? Our exploration ships can already do everything a weapon could do, and they can do it without causing harm. He changed the projection one final time, showing a human child playing with what looked like a simple toy. The toy, the Imperial Trade Council's headquarters on Valeria Prime, buzzed with nervous energy as the galaxy's most powerful economic minds gathered for emergency negotiations. For 2,000 years, the Valerian Empire had controlled interstellar commerce through careful manipulation of resources, technology, and trade routes. Now everything they had built was about to crumble. Economist Junho sat across the massive negotiating table from Imperial Trade Minister Keycloth, his relaxed demeanor a stark contrast to the barely controlled panic in the alien official's eyes. Behind Junho, a small team of human economic advisors reviewed data on portable devices that made the Empire's greatest computers look like ancient calculating machines. Before we begin formal negotiations, Trade Minister Keycloth said, his translator struggling with the stress in his voice, we must understand the scope of human economic capabilities. Junho nodded pleasantly. Of course. We're happy to share information about our economic systems. Transparency benefits everyone. He activated a holographic display that filled the air above the table with charts and graphs showing human production capabilities. The numbers were so large that several alien economists immediately began checking their translation devices, certain they had misunderstood. This shows our basic manufacturing output for the past year, Junho explained. We've found that post-scarcity economics require different approaches than traditional trade systems. Post-scarcity? Senior Economic Advisor Velcrum asked weakly. We can manufacture virtually anything in unlimited quantities, Junho said simply. When you can arrange matter at the atomic level, most traditional economic limitations disappear. Trade. Minister Keycloth stared at the production figures. The humans claimed to produce more finished goods in a single day than the Empire's greatest manufacturing worlds produced in a year. These numbers must be incorrect, he protested. No civilization can achieve this level of output. Businesswoman Sori, who had been quietly reviewing the Empire's economic data, looked up from her tablet. Actually, your production levels are impressively high for a pre-molecular civilization, she said with genuine appreciation. You've done remarkable things with macro-scale manufacturing. Pre-molecular? Velcrum asked. You build things by assembling large components, Sori explained. Very efficient for your technological level. We build things by arranging individual atoms, which lets us create perfect products from any available matter. She touched a control on her tablet, and a small device on the table began to glow. The air above it shimmered, and suddenly there was a perfect replica of Trade Minister Keycloth's ceremonial goblet sitting beside the original. Our replicators can create perfect copies of any object, she continued. We analyze the atomic structure and rebuild it from available materials. It takes about 30 seconds for something this complex. The alien economist stared at the duplicated goblet in horrified fascination. It was identical to the original in every detail, including microscopic engravings that would take master craftsmen months to complete. How much does this cost to produce? Economic Advisor Drakmer asked. Cost? Sori looked confused. The raw materials are just atmospheric gases. The energy comes from quantum vacuum fluctuations. There's no meaningful cost involved. No cost? Trade Minister Keycloth's voice rose to a squeak. Everything has a cost. Not when you work with fundamental forces instead of against them, Junho explained patiently. The universe wants to organize matter efficiently. We just provide guidance about what arrangements we prefer. He showed them another display, this one depicting human agricultural systems. The images showed vast towers that reached toward the sky, their surfaces covered with growing plants. Our vertical farms produce about 1,000 times more food per square meter than traditional agriculture, he said. We grow everything in controlled environments using artificial nutrients that are actually more nutritious than natural ones. Dr. Yelkoth, the Empire's leading agricultural economist, nearly choked. Impossible! Artificial nutrients cannot be more nutritious than natural ones. They can if you design them to be, Sori replied. Natural nutrients are limited by what random evolutionary processes happen to produce. Designed nutrients can be optimized for exactly what biological systems need. She showed them a food production facility that looked more like a chemistry laboratory than a farm. Plants grew in perfect geometric arrangements, their roots bathed in precisely formulated solutions, while controlled lighting provided exactly the wavelengths needed for optimal growth. Each plant receives perfect nutrition, optimal lighting, and ideal growing conditions, she explained. We can produce a year's worth of food for 1,000 people in a space the size of this room. What about the cost of the artificial nutrients? Senior Advisor Velcrum asked desperately. We make them from atmospheric gases and trace minerals, Junho replied. Same way we make everything else. When you can manipulate matter at the molecular level, the distinction between different types of materials becomes largely artificial. Trade. Minister Keycloth felt his entire worldview crumbling. The Empire's economy was based on scarcity rare materials, difficult manufacturing processes, limited agricultural output. These humans had eliminated scarcity entirely. What do you trade? He asked weakly. Ideas mostly, Sori said thoughtfully. Art, music, stories, scientific theories, engineering innovations, things that come from consciousness rather than manufacturing. But surely you need some physical goods, Economic Advisor Drakemer insisted. Raw materials, energy sources, manufactured products? We can make all of those, Junho explained. Matter is matter, energy is energy. Once you understand how to manipulate them at the fundamental level, you can convert anything into anything else. He showed them images of human asteroid mining operations, where entire planetoids were converted into streams of organized particles and rebuilt as finished starships. We turn rocks into spacecraft in about 6 hours, he said. The limiting factor isn't materials or energy, it's deciding what we want to build. The alien economist sat in stunned silence, finally understanding the implications. Every luxury good the Empire produced could be perfectly replicated by human technology in minutes. Every rare material they controlled could be synthesized from common elements. Every manufacturing advantage they possessed was obsolete. This will destroy our economy, Trade Minister Keycloth whispered. Only if you insist on competing with us in manufacturing, Sori said gently. But why would you want to do that? She activated another display, this one showing human cultural productions art galleries, concert halls, research institutes, and entertainment facilities. Post-scarcity economics aren't about making things, she explained. They're about creating experiences, developing ideas, and expanding consciousness. When you don't have to worry about survival, you can focus on what makes life meaningful. But how do you measure value? Dr. Yelkoth asked. By how much something enriches existence, Junho replied. A beautiful song, an elegant scientific theory, a moving story. These things have value because they make life better, not because they're scarce. He showed them examples of human economic activity researchers working on fundamental questions about the universe, artists creating experiences that touch the soul, storytellers crafting narratives that explored the depths of consciousness. Our most valued citizens aren't the ones who produce the most goods, he said. They're the ones who contribute the most to understanding beauty, and wisdom. Trade Minister Keycloth struggled to comprehend this alien concept. But without scarcity, how do you motivate people to work? We don't need to motivate them to work, Sori replied. We motivate them to create, to explore, to understand, to contribute something meaningful to existence. Most humans find that much more satisfying than simply producing goods. She showed them images of human society where people pursued their passions without worry about basic survival. Scientists exploring abstract theories, artists creating for the joy of creation, philosophers contemplating the nature of existence. When everyone's material needs are automatically met, they're free to focus on what they really care about, she explained. This is madness, economic advisor Drakemar muttered. Economics without scarcity, value without rarity, wealth without accumulation. It's evolution, Junho corrected gently. Traditional economics are just a temporary stage that civilizations pass through on their way to something better. He leaned forward, his expression serious for the first time during the meeting. Minister Keycloth, your empire has built a magnificent civilization using traditional economic principles. But you're approaching the limits of what those principles can achieve. What do you suggest? The trade minister asked, though he feared the answer. Join us, Sori said simply. We can teach your people how to build replicators, how to manipulate matter, how to harness quantum energy. Within a generation, your civilization could move beyond scarcity entirely. And in return, share your culture with us, Junho replied. Your art, your music, your stories, your ways of thinking about existence. Those things have value that no replicator can create. Trade Minister Keycloth looked around the room at his advisors, seeing his own confusion reflected in their faces. These humans offered to give them technology that would transform their chivalry. The Imperial Science Directorate's most secure facility had never hosted a gathering like this one. Deep beneath the surface of Valeria Prime, in chambers designed to contain the most dangerous experiments in the galaxy, the Empire's greatest minds had assembled for one final attempt to understand human technology. Dr. Minho stood in the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by monitoring equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. Around him, dozens of alien scientists watched with desperate intensity as they prepared to witness the ultimate revelation about humanity's impossible achievements. Grand. Scientist Thekmori activated the facility's most powerful sensors, devices, capable of analyzing matter and energy at scales beyond the comprehension of most civilizations. For weeks, they had been studying every piece of human technology they could access, searching for the secret that made the impossible possible. Dr. Minho, she said, her ancient voice heavy with exhaustion, we have analyzed your devices down to the quantum level. We have examined your materials atom by atom. We have studied your energy patterns with instruments that can detect the movement of individual particles. She paused, her expression haunted. Nothing we have discovered explains how your technology functions. Your devices operate in ways that violate the fundamental laws of physics as we understand them. That's because you're looking for the wrong thing, Minho replied gently. You keep trying to understand our technology using your physics, but our physics are different from yours. Physics are universal. Dr. Krelvoth protested from his position at the monitoring station. The laws of nature cannot be different for different species, can't they? Researcher Seoyoung asked from where she sat reviewing human historical data. What if the laws of physics aren't laws at all, but more like ... guidelines? The assembled scientists erupted in outraged protests, but Seoyoung continued calmly. The universe is much more flexible than most species realize. Physical laws are descriptions of how reality behaves under normal circumstances, but circumstances don't have to be normal. She activated a display showing human children playing in a schoolyard. The images looked innocent enough until the scientists realized what they were seeing. The children were casually manipulating gravity, reshaping matter with their hands and creating small portals in space-time. Your children can violate physics, Grand Scientist Thekmori whispered in horror. They're not violating physics, Minho explained. They're exploring possibilities that your physics haven't accounted for yet. He showed them more images from human society students in classrooms where impossible things were taught as basic subjects, researchers working on projects that redefined reality itself, engineers building devices that shouldn't exist. The secret to human technology isn't advanced science, he said. It's advanced imagination. Imagination cannot change physical laws, Dr. Velkorn insisted. Why not? Xiaoyang asked. At the quantum level, consciousness and reality interact in ways that classical physics never predicted. We've learned to use that interaction deliberately. She showed them recordings of human development throughout history, children imagining impossible things, then growing up to make those impossible things real. Human development follows a different pattern than most species, she explained. Other civilizations learn about reality and then adapt their desires to match what's possible. Humans imagine what they want reality to be like, then figure out how to make reality match their imagination. That's not science, senior researcher Yulter protested. That's fantasy. What's the difference? Dr. Minho asked seriously. Science is just the process of making fantasy into reality through systematic experimentation. He activated another display, this one showing human scientific development over the past century. Instead of following logical progressions from simple to complex, human technology seemed to leap randomly from impossible to more impossible. Your development makes no sense, Dr. Krelveth observed. You achieved faster than light travel before. You perfected fusion power. You built quantum computers before you understood quantum mechanics. You created artificial intelligence before you mapped the human brain. Because we don't let current limitations define future possibilities, Xiaoyang explained. Human children routinely imagine technologies that violate known physics. Instead of telling them why their ideas won't work, we challenge our scientists to figure out how to make them work anyway. She showed them a human research facility where the impossible was routine. Scientists worked alongside engineers to turn childhood fantasies into working technology. Researchers collaborated with artists to explore possibilities that pure logic would never consider. This is how we developed faster-than-light travel, Minho said, pointing to a specific project. A 12-year-old girl named Haiyung wrote a story about spaceships that could fold space like paper. Instead of dismissing it as impossible, our scientists spent 15 years figuring out how to fold space like paper. A child's story became the foundation for interstellar travel? Grand Scientist Thekmori asked weakly. Many of our greatest achievements started as children's stories, Xiaoyang confirmed. Replicators, antigrav devices, artificial intelligence, matter manipulation, all of them began as impossible ideas that someone imagined before anyone knew how to build them. She showed them the development process for human quantum computers. Instead of starting with theoretical physics and working toward practical applications, human researchers had started with the idea of computers that could think faster than light, then invented new physics to make such computers possible. You develop your technology backwards, Dr. Velkorn realized. You decide what you want to achieve, then invent the science needed to achieve it. Exactly, Minho said with a smile. Most species let science limit their technology. We let our imagination expand our science. He activated one final display, this one showing the true scope of human achievement. Not just their technology, but their entire approach to existence, a civilization built on the assumption that nothing was truly impossible, only temporarily unexplained. The universe is much more collaborative than most species realize, he sighed. Reality wants to be interesting, varied, and full of possibilities. Most civilizations spend their time fighting against the universe's natural tendencies. We learn to work with them instead. How? Senior researcher Yulter asked desperately. By remembering that consciousness and reality are partners in creating existence, Xiaoyang replied. The universe is constantly exploring different possibilities. Conscious minds help guide which possibilities become real. She showed them human meditation practices, artistic endeavors, and scientific research all focused on expanding consciousness and exploring new ways of thinking about reality. We teach our children that the universe is friendly, she explained, that it wants to help them achieve their dreams, that physical laws are suggestions rather than absolute limitations, that imagination is the most powerful force in existence. This is madness, Dr. Krelvuth muttered. Reality cannot be changed by believing in it, can it? Dr. Minho asked. Quantum mechanics suggests that observation affects reality at the fundamental level. We've simply learned to observe with intention rather than passive measurement. He demonstrated by pulling out a simple device and asking it to create a flower made of crystallized light. The device complied immediately, producing something that should have been impossible according to every physical law the aliens knew. The device didn't create the flower, he explained as the aliens stared at the impossible object. The universe created the flower. The device just helped me ask politely. Grand Scientist Thekmori looked around the chamber at her fellow researchers, seeing her own existential crisis reflected in their faces. Everything they had believed about science, about physics, about the nature of reality itself, had been revealed as incomplete. How do we learn to think like humans? She asked quietly. Start by remembering that you were once children, Xiaoyang suggested. Before you learned that certain things were impossible, what did you dream about? What did you imagine? What did you wish the universe could be like? And then? Dr. Velkorin asked. Then stop accepting that those dreams were impossible, Dr. Minho replied. Start working to make them real instead. As the revelation session ended, the alien scientists sat in contemplative silence, finally understanding the source of humanity's impossible technology. It wasn't advanced science or superior engineering. It was the radical belief that reality could be negotiated, that consciousness could reshape existence, and that imagination was the fundamental force that drove the universe toward ever greater possibilities. The humans had achieved the impossible by refusing to accept that anything was truly impossible. They had rewritten the laws of physics by remembering that those laws were descriptions of reality, not limitations upon it. And now, they offered to teach the rest of the galaxy how to dream without limits. The Imperial Palace on Valeria Prime had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but it had never hosted a ceremony quite like this one. Emperor Zarthik, ruler of half the galaxy, stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, preparing to announce the most significant decision in Imperial history. Ambassador Insu waited patiently at the Emperor's side, his calm presence a stark contrast to the nervous energy radiating from the alien dignitaries. In the 3 months since humanity's revelation, the galaxy had been in chaos as civilizations struggled to understand their new place in a universe where the impossible had become routine. Citizens of the Valerian Empire, Emperor Zarthik began, his voice carrying across the vast hall through translation systems that had been quietly upgraded by human technology. For 2,000 years, our empire has brought order to the galaxy through superior technology and military might. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces representing dozens of species. Many of them looked confused, others worried, and a few seemed to understand what was coming. Today, we acknowledge that our era of dominance has ended, the Emperor continued. Not through conquest or defeat, but through the arrival of beings so advanced that our greatest achievements pale in comparison to their everyday tools. A murmur ran through the assembly. Some delegates had expected this announcement, but hearing it officially still came as a shock. Therefore, Emperor Zarthik said, his voice growing stronger, the Valerian Empire formally requests membership in the human sphere of influence. We seek not conquest or domination, but partnership in exploring the boundless possibilities that our new allies have revealed. The hall erupted in chaos as delegates shouted questions, protests, and demands for explanation. Ambassador Insu stepped forward, his presence somehow commanding attention despite his small stature compared to most of the alien dignitaries. Honored representatives, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the noise, we understand your concerns, The transition to post-scarcity civilization is challenging for any society. He activated a holographic display that filled the air above the assembly, showing images of the first human Imperial joint research facility that had been established on the neutral world of Kepler Station. For the past month, researchers from both our civilizations have been working together to explore the intersection of Imperial knowledge and human capabilities. Insu explained, "The results have exceeded our most optimistic predictions." The display showed alien scientists working alongside human graduates, learning techniques that had seemed impossible just weeks before. Imperial researchers who had spent centuries mastering complex theories were being taught to achieve the same results with simple mental exercises. Director Guion, the human administrator of the joint facility, appeared in the projection to address the assembly. "The Imperial scientists have been remarkable students," he said with genuine admiration. "Once they stopped trying to force reality to obey rigid laws and started learning to collaborate with it instead, their progress became extraordinary." The display showed examples,